Welcome everyone to the third session in the WOMM Community Strategist Training Program. We'll wait just a minute or two to give everyone a chance to dial in. Looks like everyone's calendar alerts just went off, so we're going to give them another minute or two to get dialed into the conference bridge. Looks like some more folks are dialing in. We'll take probably another 30 seconds and we'll get started. All right, let's get started. My name is Jim Storer, and I'm the co-founder of the Community Roundtable, and I'll be the moderator for your class today. I'm very pleased to have Claire Flanagan from CSC with us today. Hi, Claire.
Hi, Jim.
Glad to have you here. Let me get through some housekeeping, and we'll get started. So first off, please feel free to enter questions throughout the presentation. There should be a question tab on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll hold some of those for the Q&A session. If I can answer some of them, I'll answer those in the questions as well. Please share and follow along the conversation on Twitter using the #CMTraining hashtag. We'll keep an eye on those throughout the class, and we'll announce a top tweeter by the end of the class. Just a reminder, it's okay if you can't come to every session live. We are recording them, so they'll be available on demand afterward. We do encourage you to come to as many as you can, but if you can't make it, it's not a big deal. You'll get an email 24 hours after the class with the login information. Also, there is a private Facebook group for this class. If you haven't already joined, please click on the link that comes up in the chat later in the class and request access. Now on to today's session. It's called Internal Community Building, and it's presented by Claire Flanagan. Claire, who is at @CFlanagan on Twitter, is CSC's Director of Enterprise Social Business Collaboration and Community Strategy. She has over 20 years experience in information design, electronic communication, collaboration applications, and knowledge management. She led CSC's industry award-winning social business collaboration implementation, currently enjoying a 100,000 active member rate. She also recently oversaw the implementation of CSC's public-facing social business platform and is now responsible for overall social business strategy deployment to CSC's ecosystem of customers, partners, and prospects. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Claire to begin the session.
Great. Thank you very much, Jim. I appreciate it. Welcome, everyone. As Jim mentioned, I'll be talking to you a little bit about CSC social business strategy, and we'll share with you a little bit of CSC's case study in social business, primarily our experience with social community strategy for the employee community. I'll start with an overview. We'll move on to how we built it. I'll share a little bit about our staffing and governance model to give you some ideas of how we think about this. I'll share what's next on our horizon and hopefully leave you with a good checklist for success for your own journey in this space. Before we get started, let me level set a little bit about our company and what it is that we do and what industry we work in. We are a Fortune 200 global IT services provider. We have over 98,000 employees across the globe providing IT and business services consulting and solutions in 6 industries in over 90 countries. So as a consulting organization, we do tend to have a higher % of knowledge workers in our business. When we think about social business, I'd like to really level set on a good definition before we get started. And we started in this space in 2008 before the term social business was even coined. And if you actually, do a search on the web and try to find a good social business definition, it's really hard to find one. But I like this particular definition because it really addresses our viewpoint of this market space. And this definition covers a few key points. First, it suggests that social business is an organization that doesn't just look at technologies. Instead, it really looks at strategies and processes as well and ways in which an enterprise can engage all individuals of their ecosystem, so employees, customers, partners, suppliers, to really maximize the co-created value. And we feel that this definition actually resonates well with our strategy. At CSC, we believe that true innovation occurs not only when innovation is within our firewall or when that collaboration is within our firewall, but also when we enable that collaboration and that social process outside and across our firewall when we engage with our ecosystem of employees, customers, partners, alumni, and the public at large and prospects at large. Our strategy and approach, or even platform choice, is really segmented based on our engagement goals, the audience we want to reach, and the level of protection we may or may not need over the IP being shared or the intellectual property that we're sharing. So you can see here that we have a pretty broad solution space in all of these areas where we're addressing those public and those more private and secure channel collaboration and social business strategy with our ecosystem. Our strategy does include a comprehensive approach and one that recognizes the value and the importance of a participate, manage, and own strategy. And our approach is targeted based upon the channel, the level of engagement that's required, the audience we're trying to engage with, and again, the level of control that we might need on the conversation or the level of intellectual property that we may be sharing. For instance, obviously what we may be sharing in the social media space may be a shorter level of engagement, maybe not as secure IP in terms of the type of materials we might be sharing, and we would be looking to an own channel and maybe even private channels when we need to think about collaborating or helping customers solve their business problems or delivering unique solutions to solve work that we may be engaged with them. So you can see that our strategy depends on all of those factors. Under the brand of CSC Engaged Communities, we have launched our community program that serves our employees, our private customer or public customer engagement channels. And we believe this allows us to bring a new way of working and engaging with our ecosystem. It really provides a new way to collaborate and innovate where knowledge and work is actually captured in the workflow of that exchange. It allows us to provide a new way to communicate where our executive leaders, our corp comm professionals, or even marketers and customers can share messages or engage and collaborate to drive richer engagement or richer customer engagement. We believe these tools and these platforms allow us a new way to locate and network with each other, and obviously provides ways to stay connected and really personalize an experience in the content. So for the balance of this talk, I'm really going to focus more on what we've done with our employee community and what we've done inside of our firewall. I'll share with you what we've done and what we feel has worked. So we first started our social business journey in 2008, where Facebook was all the new rage. We knew at that time that what was happening in the consumer world must have implications for business. There had to be something that was going on that we could be inspired by and we could learn from in terms of bringing some of those best practices into our business. We were successful at the time in making the business case to bring those social collaboration capabilities internally that would help us improve productivity, improve the new hire onboarding process, reduce the risk of intellectual property loss, either through attrition or through our staff using tools in the consumer world and sharing our IP outside of our firewall, which was not desirable. And we were successful at also suggesting ways that we could break down and eliminate silos across our organization and meet our innovation and revenue goals. So we did set out to make a move in this space and put forward a business case that was approved. We launched C3 as a pilot the following year in May 2009. C3 is the brand name of our employee community, where our employees could connect, communicate, and collaborate. We believe our adoption best practices helped our environment and our community go viral and global, and even garner industry attention for some of the best practices we brought to bear. 20 weeks into our pilot, we went from 0 to 25,000 registered users, and from 200 business groups that we seeded to 2,000 emergent self-service groups created by our staff. Today, as Jim mentioned, we are now at full adoption with over 75 to 80% active users on a monthly basis. We are seeing close to 8 million activities a month, and we are now looking at exponential growth where we're seeing 250% year-over-year growth in activities in the platform. Not only do our metrics tell us how widespread the use is and the global participation and reach that we do have, but we hear how the platform and the community has won the hearts and minds of our employees. We hear things like, proud to be CSC, or I can really see how this will transform the way in which we do business at CSC. We've seen leaders transform the way they lead and communicate and use their channels to align their business teams to company strategy. In fact, one of our group presidents had recently said, it is the de facto standard for how we collaborate. It is the language of our company. We've also seen business benefits such as reduced cycle times to find experts or answers, collapsing time zone and distance barriers, and we've even recognized cost savings in the form of consolidation and platform reduction. So all ways where we're seeing real impacts in our business and real engagement benefits of our employee community. So how did we build this? What did we do? First, I'd like to say, and I like to start off with this thought, that you may hear in the industry, you can't plan to go viral. I argue you can't go viral if you don't plan well. I think it's easy for an IT to install tools and assume users will come, but we talk about this a lot in the industry. In the social space, in the community space, it's not enough just to build it and expect your users to come. It really is important to think about your organization change. These tools are about people. You are asking people, especially inside the firewall, to transform the way in which they work and the transparency with which they do that work. In this space, you really need to plan for that organization change, that culture change. So I believe there were 3 keys to our success, and hopefully we'll inspire you with some great ideas through this session. First, we knew we needed to be credible. We needed to do our planning well. We also knew we needed to start somewhere. And finally, we knew we had to plan for that adoption, plan for that organization change that was so critically required. So let's start with what it took to be credible. I believe to be seen as credible as a social business strategy, it's important you bring the rigor to the process of overseeing this program and really do well at all of these areas. For CSC, we feel there were actually 5 steps in making our business case. First, we knew that we needed to do our homework. We researched the industry, sought out experts, networked in the industry, and even benchmarked our thinking and work with others in the marketplace. And several years ago, especially inside the firewall, this space was relatively new. So finding those individuals was a little bit more difficult, and networking and finding those resources was really something that we place a lot of emphasis on. Second, we knew we needed to be clear about the business problems we were trying to solve and how they mapped to our company strategy. We sought global cross-functional membership in our evaluation team, and we also looked to locate and engage and establish key executive sponsorship. And we knew we needed all of that in place to be able to move forward and plan our business case. Before we even moved to an evaluation stage, we had a really good idea of what we wanted to accomplish. We had good broad representation to help us with that thinking, and we had documented very well and effectively what we thought our requirements were and how that mapped to our company strategy. Only when we had all of those things did we feel we were ready to move into a formal evaluation stage and actually start looking at tools and evaluating tools and doing the type of bake-offs that we're used to doing in the IT area. But we knew we needed to do all of this well if our project was to be objective and if we were to stand the test of time and be able to stand up to future naysayers or critics along the way. So we felt this was really important. With all of the right input, we actually did feel we were ready to make a recommendation. And in our case, when we made this recommendation a few years ago, we were making a recommendation for a solution that wasn't the enterprise, the typical enterprise suspects. So we were making a recommendation that our users felt would best meet our business objectives. So for us, our recommendation was to actually launch a pilot. And for us, our pilot helped us validate whether or not our business goals were correct, whether or not our assumptions were correct, and whether or not the tool we selected would meet our user expectations as well as our performance and technical targets. So for us, our pilot was actually the fifth stage in making our business case. And this leads me to the second point, which is really start somewhere. This space moves much faster than we're used to in the past. It's no longer okay to be waiting a year or two to launch a strategy. We knew that by doing our homework well, the results we returned were asking us to look at a solution that wasn't a typical solution for the enterprise. So we knew we needed to do a little bit more work to really validate our assessment. So our recommendation of launching a pilot helped us mitigate that risk, helped us mitigate and really prove out some of our assumptions. Our pilot was one that was limited in audience but not in duration. This helped us narrow our financial scope and risk, but it allowed us the time to complete all of the work in the evaluation and actually prove out if our solution was going to work. It allowed us to also focus on key use cases, realizing that we could add capability, expand use, or even innovate over time. So for us, we really believe that starting somewhere was really important, allowed us to build momentum, and allowed us to have the pilot prove its own success, which in our case it did. But the pilot wasn't successful unless we had also done some other things well. We had to plan for adoption. As I mentioned, social business for the enterprise, when you're thinking about employee communities, you are not just thinking about the technology, you are thinking about the people and the organization change required. So we had a four-part approach to this. First, we knew we needed top-down support. Not only were our executives sponsors and were they writing the check, so to speak, for the financial investment we were asking for, but we also saw our executives as critical in walking the talk, showing that this new tool and capability was really safe for business, we asked them, can you assign someone from your business to work with us on this program? Can you begin a leadership blog? Or do you have a strategic program that we can seed early? Second, we knew that even though this was an internal community and for employees, that staffing the role of community managers and locating and energizing a global group of advocates would be critical. I'll talk more about these roles a little bit later when I talk about staffing and governance and what we asked these individuals to do with us. But that was something we spent a lot of time and we focused a lot of effort on. And we did this work before we even launched the pilot. Third, we knew it would also be important to inspire how to use these tools for work. So we seeded good work examples and business use cases in the community, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later. And finally, we knew we had to plan for the organization change and the business transformation, and in this respect, our advocates were our secret weapons in this area, and they did help us go viral and global. So why did I mention that you need to seed business use cases? I believe that no one likes joining a space that is empty. It's hard to know what to do or where to start. We seeded use cases that helped our consulting organization focus on real work examples. We seeded examples that demonstrated and inspired ways to engage and collaborate. And for us as a consulting organization, these use cases were things like work groups to support our solution development process, or work groups to support managing our customer accounts, or work groups to support the way in which we may go through a bid and proposal process for our customers. We also seeded areas that provided peer support or help desk support use cases. So let me share a few examples here. We seeded early on groups like Cloud Computing, Friends of the Penguin, Cult of Mac, groups that allowed our technologists to find individuals like themselves and collaborate in that technology space that they work. We seeded groups like Program and Project Management, Sales and Business Development, Solution Architecture and Design, groups that focused on our key competencies and our key capabilities across the organization. And we also seeded groups like Ask Your Colleagues, Excel Tips and Tricks, and Australia Help Desk IT Support, all groups that support the peer or formal help desk models in the system. Again, all of these that were groups that first provided immediate work-related topics for our global colleagues to join and engage in, but more importantly, provided inspiration for how to use this tool for business and work processes within our organization. I suggest to you, to be successful in this area, you want to ask yourself, what industry am I in? What are the key work processes that make up our business? And how can I seed those type of examples within my environment to support our business process and to give our solution a chance to be successful? I believe it's not only important to think about those work use cases, but it's also important to see the use case of the water cooler. We hear a lot in the industry about the changing nature of our work, the move to more virtual offices and global locations, but we also need to remember that we are social beings, and sometimes relationships and who we know in our network are critical elements to how effectively work really gets done. There are many studies about the importance of relationships and the value of a shared fire. In summary, I like to say these studies show that if I know you and I like you, I will help you. And when I help you, we are productive. So at CSC, we knew we needed to trust our employees and allow those personal relationships to form, it was just good for business. So how does a staffing model change for an employee community? What do you need to be thinking about in this area? I do believe that when you're thinking about an internal or employee community, you do need to think a little bit more about business transformation and capturing knowledge in the flow of work. And to do that, I feel you want to think about community management skills and strategy skills that are focused a little bit more on org change, business collaboration, knowledge management, and transformation. Because what you're trying to do inside the enterprise is really enable and transform the way your business gets done and the way in which you want to be innovative or productive. So I do feel that the skills that you look for a community management role may vary slightly, while some of the activities and the tasks may be very similar to what you need to do outside the firewall. At CSC, our governance model reflects a strong partnership between IT and the business. In our case, our executive business sponsor is CSC's Chief Innovation Officer, who's a direct report to our CEO, who I actually report into myself. Our organization is responsible for the social business strategy, staffing of the enterprise community manager role, and enabling and training our community management ecosystem of group owners and lifeguards throughout the business. And I'll talk a little bit more about this in a second. As you can imagine, though, to be successful, it really does require a solid technical team and one who shares your vision and goals and passion and can help you and the organization achieve great things with these tools. And I will say at CSC, we've been very lucky to have that type of strong partnership and that type of strong leadership within our organization. So let me talk a little bit about these community manager roles and what's different about it inside the organization. We have what we call 4 key roles in our community management program. First, there is the role of the social business strategist, and no matter what I put on this chart, it cannot do the justice that Rachel gave this role in the first class of this module, where she really did an excellent job articulating the skills, the responsibilities, and the complexity of the social business strategist. This person really is responsible for leading and directing the strategy, benchmarking and networking in the industry, and figuring out what our best practices and what our next practices, and even leading and inspiring the organization to transform in very complex ways. Second, we do have the role of a community manager. And as I mentioned earlier, we did hire for this role someone who has an organization change and communication skills in their background. This individual is responsible for coaching, watching key global areas, engaging in and growing our advocate program, and planning our business collaboration training series. So this individual is really responsible for a lot of areas to help us achieve the transformation that we want to achieve. The last 2 roles are so important. Let me talk about these roles individually. Since anyone at CSC can self-service and create a business group to meet their business goals on demand, our group owners play a much more formal and a significant role in our community management model. Our group owners are responsible for seeding and leading work use cases that support project teams, solution collaboration, or bid teams or account management teams. They are responsible for member engagement for that work topic and moderating conversations and even content and collaboration goals for that particular topic area. Our group owners are welcome to join the C3 Lifeguard program, where they have access to support and programs and training and coaching as needed. And I just realized some copy on this is falling off for a second. I'm not sure why. In short, our group owners really are the local community managers for their topic areas. They are asked to sign group owner terms of service, where they are reminded of their responsibility as part of the community ecosystem to really manage and moderate groups and ensure that content that is shared is business appropriate and productive. So let's talk a little bit about our lifeguards. For us, our lifeguards are our C3 ambassadors within our organization, and we view them as our strategic planning partners. When we started our journey a number of years ago, we realized that a small team of a few would quickly need to scale our efforts. So we did look to recruit, locate, and engage an advocate community that would actually help us not only launch our pilot, but stay engaged with us through the life cycle of our employee community. We launched with 100 global advocates who helped us seed and lead 200 business groups in our environment before we even launched our pilot. Today, they are still critical in our success. So what do lifeguards do? For us, we see them as critical members of our community management model, as I mentioned. They share in the community work by leading and seeding work use cases, as I mentioned. They also are important to us in telling stories locally and spreading the word of mouth that we need to go global and to go across and cut across all business units. They train and coach local project or business teams on effective use of this system for business. They also are important in our support model. They monitor communities and forums, and they help provide answers and keep members working in the platform and getting the questions resolved as quickly as they need to. They also play a role in pruning and curating our community. They help tag content, or they suggest when groups should be merged or deleted. And finally, to be honest, they really are a trusted source of feedback for us. As our strategic planning advisors, we run regular calls and we keep them engaged on our release planning strategy. They get early access to what we're planning to release. They give us input and feedback into those plans, and often we even reach out into that organization to be formal testers for us when we're about to release new features and functionality, and they help us find things before our employees do. So they really are helpful and help us get real work done in our employee community. So what's next for us at CSC? What's next for our employee community? Delivering this fall is a project that we're calling C3 Extend. If any of you have followed a little bit of the news about CSC, you'll realize that we have a brand new CEO that started within the last 6 months. And we are on track to turn our company around and really deliver value to our shareholders. And our new CEO has already had a positive impact on this turnaround strategy and on our stock price. He sees C3 as critical in this turnaround strategy and aligning our employees to our new strategy, to our new organization model, and to our renewed sense of mission and purpose. So while C3's middle C is communicate, we are putting in place a number of things to expand and really extend the communicate mission of our employee community. And this will really support our CEO's strategies and objectives as well as our companies. So where we might have rolled out a system out of the box in the past, we will be customizing the design and theme to reflect our brand and to reflect the sense of engagement and renewed passion that we want our employees to feel when they come into the system. We are updating our strategy, our layout, and the design and governance model for our homepage to support a renewed sense of mixed ownership, where we have both push and more official and formal content coming from our executives or from our Corp Comm organization, and to support the dynamic content. So really supporting that dual mission of both formal and dynamic and emergent content. And finally, we are creating a number of templates to help our corporate comms professionals and some of our vertical owners understand how to use the tool effectively to really support their mission. So all of these elements are things that we are renewing and extending as part of our fall release. Looking further ahead, though, we know that even though we've been extremely successful, we still have work to do. We believe the pace of innovation here is so fast and is really transforming our job roles and the way in which we work. And we know that the hardest nut to crack really in this space is teaching individuals how their jobs change, how productivity or innovation could be improved with effective use. So at CSE, we believe that social business becomes more pervasive and strategic only when you help staff build those set of new competencies and skills in your employees and leaders. So we have a learning architecture model that we began creating a little over a year ago with a cross-functional working group that addressed some key areas, that addressed skills, foundational skills that our staff need to have to not only understand the policy and compliance arena, but also understand some fundamental business basics of collaboration. And we're also looking at value-added skills where we can help employees understand how to work in the open. What does it mean to work in the open? And how you really extend and expand your use of digital tools to be more productive and to be more collaborative and to provide business benefit. We've also looked at competencies and skills and courses we need to think about to help our leaders understand how these new tools actually transform their jobs and what being open leaders mean in this new space to be effective at their jobs and use and leverage new tools to amplify their role as a leader. And finally, we've been looking at the type of competencies and skills that we need to build in specialized roles. Those individuals who may be community managers or social media managers or even marketers who have to add social to their component. We've been looking at what that learning architecture framework looks like and what we need to do to help our staff be prepared to build these new tiers of skills. So for us, one of the things that we're looking forward to in the next year is really looking at taking that model and starting to roll it out and deploy it and partner with our HR and learning teams in delivering some aspects of this over the course of the next year. We know we have a lot of work to do, and we've got some goals to get momentum in this area. So finally, you heard during Rachel's opening remarks for this module how CSE is a late stage 3 social program. I believe this is the case only because we have, for the last few years, thought about both aspects of our ecosystem. We've looked at inside and outside community strategies, and we've looked at ways to make social community, social platforms part of our business innovation strategy. Most companies start somewhere. Some start with either an external social strategy or an internal social business employee community. To be truly effective, though, I believe all companies must eventually figure out how to plan a social business strategy where all parts of the ecosystem are eventually connected. As I mentioned before, and you see on this chart, we began our journey in 2008, and while I talked a whole lot about our employee community strategy, we actually had several organic initiatives that focus both on external use cases, the use of external social media, the use of private channel support communities in our financial services or healthcare industry, the use of external public-facing communities to support our external marketplace, and the use of employee communities. All of those were things that have been simultaneously going on for us in our business. We expect our journey to continue and to bring innovation, and we also expect to evolve and merge and focus more clearly our social business strategy moving forward in a way that helps us accomplish our true social business goals. So how can you follow the same formula for success? What is it that I can leave you with as key takeaways and things to inspire you on your own journey? I believe for us there were 4 key ingredients, and I believe these are the things that will help you on your own internal community program. As I mentioned before, I believe it's important to be credible. It's important to research, benchmark, network, learn everything you can about the space you're trying to move into, find out best practices, find out next practices, and locate and engage internally a global cross-functional team to help you make sense of all of that data and help you translate all of that into an effective business plan and strategy for your own organization. Be prepared to start over if and when you need to. The work I just mentioned for C3 Extend actually required us to start back at some basics. We had to research again, we benchmarked again, and we looked at what was going on in the marketplace so that our recommendation was valid and appropriate based on where this space would go, but also based upon our organizational goals. I also believe it's important to talk executives. You need to learn the language of your executives and engage them and form strong relationships. If you do step 1 well, if you're credible, if you know your space well, if you know your business strategy well, it will help you talk executive. You can't talk executive if you haven't done number 1 well. You've heard me say this. I can't emphasize this enough. It is important to plan for adoption. Think about ways to plan for the top-down and groundswell engagement that you clearly need to have. Don't forget to think about your business and see those use cases or those groups that will inspire how to use these tools for work. And don't forget the use case of the water cooler. It is important to forge and build those strong relationships across your business. And finally, it's important to start somewhere. We hear this a lot throughout all of the classes in these modules, that it's not enough to wait for perfect. You have to think about where you want to start, get started quickly, and be comfortable iterating and extending later. As I mentioned before, you can't plan to go viral, but you certainly can go viral if you plan all of these elements well. So I hope this helped you with what we've done, and I really thank you for your time. I think we've left a good amount of time for questions now if you have any, so I'll turn this back to Jim to moderate the question and answer section.
That's great, Claire. Thank you so much. We did get a bunch of questions, some through Twitter, some through the console, folks. You can do it either way, although right now it's actually easier for me to follow the console. So if you could pump them right in there, that'd be great. One right off the top, Claire, can you tell us a little bit of how you define active users among your employees and what kind of led you to that metric as the right one?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I will say you can slice and dice it, and sometimes you do want to slice and dice it in different ways. Active users are individuals who have logged in and done something. So they've either consumed a piece of content, they've contributed a comment, or they've added a collaborative document. Does that answer the question?
So there's no time frame associated with that? It's just they've been in the platform?
Yeah, I'm sorry. We look at this on a monthly basis. So when we run these reports, we're looking at active users within the month.
Oh, okay, great.
Yep.
Can you share any tactics? I mean, I know you shared a lot in this presentation. I'm wondering if you maybe can go a little bit deeper and talk about any tactics that you felt really helped you get to that 100% engagement.
Yeah, I can't emphasize enough the value of having our advocates engage with us early and the value of thinking about those use cases early. So I talked about this at a high level, but we spent a lot of time with our advocates before we even launched our pilot. We gave them access to a sandbox environment before we even launched so they could use and experience the tool. We use that space to share our plans, our project schedules, to ask each other questions. So we were actually managing our own project with each other in a solution that matched what we were about to release. So that really helped our advocates be inspired with what was possible. And by using it and having our highly, motivated early adopters in there, we weren't lacking for people trying the system out and trying to use it for different work cases. So I think that really helped our advocates be inspired with how to use it for business, how to use it to store files, but not just store files, collaborate and build plans together and ask questions and see the value of shutting down your machine at night and realizing when you came back in the morning that you had 3 or 4 other answers from other staff across the globe. I really believe that hand-holding and nurturing we did of the advocates early helped them help us be inspired with use cases that we could see for work. So that was one of the very specific things that we did with the advocates and things that they helped us do as well. Since I will say that by doing some of those things well early, I do think we had a huge amount of early adopters who joined the platform early, who then were inspired to seed other very important business use cases. So we saw some of our key account managers move and launch their collaboration effort in the platform. And by having enough of those use cases really persist in many areas of our business, it became something that that could support our business, and it became something that our employees realized how to use it and how to use it for other work cases that they may not have thought about. So to a certain extent, we planned for that to happen, and to a certain extent, the way in which it's developed and evolved has been really emergent, in that it supported our business use cases as our staff realized and had new business use cases.
So I think Ray asked a really interesting related question. With 2,000 plus groups, isn't there a danger of you recreating your existing organizational silos, and how do you keep that from happening?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And let me just say that we were at 2,000 groups at 20 weeks. We're actually now at 13,000 groups. So that number is a little bit more significant. I believe that you either take one approach in this space. You either gate and vet and approve whether or not a group can be set up for work, or you worry about cleanup and moderation and watching after the fact. Either way, the level of effort is the same. You just need to ask yourself whether or not you're going to be a barrier to that collaboration taking place when it needs to take place, or if you're going to watch it after the fact. So we opted on a strategy to allow self-service creation of groups when an individual had a business use case that they needed to work on. Now, what do we do with overlap, or are we concerned with the reinforcement of silos? We also allow our system to support secret or private groups. So that means that we believe to support our use cases, there are some times where even within our own organization, due to, say, client contracts or even import-export regulations, there may be conversations that shouldn't be opened. However, we do have a great percent of our workspaces that are open. And I will tell you that we do rely on our advocates and we do rely on the community to help us moderate where we may have overlap. So where someone might have created a group that someone else had already started, say, a month or a year ago. We've seen success in that type of self-moderation, and we've seen success in terms of group owners being willing to shut down or merge their groups. We try to remind folks, and I'm sure everybody has this problem, we try to remind folks to search first before creating a new group. But we all know sometimes, that isn't the case. Secondly, we do believe that this tool should support our business. So we didn't put in place a lot of things up front to reinforce those silos, although we do have groups or business communities that support our business units. And there are reasons why that's a good thing. We don't worry too much about over-regulating whether or not a conversation should take place in a particular group. But what I will tell you, which almost goes to the answer, is that with our C3 Extend project, what we will be doing in November is rolling out a much more structured taxonomy of our business. We did allow C3 to grow a little bit more organically, and we did feel that we didn't want to reinforce silos or reinforce the way we're organized. But we realized, especially with the transformation we're going through, we do need to bring into the environment a very structured way for our staff to locate the messages that they do need to find and locate solutions that we are selling and business units and business communications that they are expected to also be aware of. So we will be layering in a much more formalized way of navigating that content, and we will be looking at a much more formal way of eliminating or reducing groups or communities that may have reflected our old model and sunsetting those in the process. So I know this was a long question, but I hope it gives you the flavor for the complexity that's involved when you look at this space in this way.
There's a quick follow-up question about groups, and the question is, do you automate the collapse of inactive groups somehow? If not, how do you track them and make sure you take care of them?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. There isn't an automated way we have yet. I'm sure if we had spent our development resources on solving that problem, we would have. It is not automated. We do have a process that we look at to routinely watch and monitor activity. So we are pulling reports, and we are looking for things like whether or not it's a group of one, whether or not there's any content in there, when it was created, when it was last accessed, and some other criteria to help us decide whether or not it's an easy target for deleting or removing. Where there's some activity going on, we've used this process from past systems, and we're going to be re-energizing this in C3. We will be reaching out to group owners and collaborating a little bit more to figure out where we can sunset more. But we do a lot of things to help our staff navigate and filter and really find topical areas and really navigate and stay on top of that wide expanse of communities.
Great. Got a kind of a holistic question for you. Were you able to identify any cost savings from your implementation of the internal community?
Yes, and I mentioned this in a brief high-level statement earlier when I was talking about our metrics, and we really don't share the actual number, but I can say that we did realize a multi-million-dollar cost savings in consolidating platforms as a result of the benefits we saw that this system could bring. So not only was this going to support our collaboration platform, but we realized that it really could support that mix, that formal push, formal intranet, if you will, I hate that word, strategy, as well as your emergent collaborative and social business strategy. So when we realized that was when we were actually able to look at our portfolio a little bit more precisely and really start going after some real cost savings. And that's from an IT perspective. The other things that we've been able to get, and this is purely from success stories, and I'm sure many of you realize to really get at the hard ROI when you hear these stories take a lot of work and a real good understanding of your business, but we have been able to track back individual stories where we realize that we actually were able to deliver more to our customer because of the connections that were made and the new knowledge that was brought to bear for that customer account, or ways that we were able to save either for the customer account or in our own business because individuals were able to come up with new solutions. So we've been able to tie both back to this program.
Great. It looks like we've got about 3 or 4 minutes left. I'm going to ask 2 more questions. So are the C3 Lifeguards a full-time position, and how many are there?
Oh, that's a really good question, and I did mention that. No, the C3, being a C3 lifeguard is pure volunteer basis. When we first started, we did ask some of our key executives to assign some individuals, and I believe we had about 7 that were assigned to us, not full-time, but formally through their organization, where their executive realized a portion of their job would be to support our effort. And they helped us find, the balance of the 100 advocates at the time. We are a little over 300 advocates now, and the momentum and engagement will ebb and flow, as I'm sure many folks, can resonate with. But it is volunteer, and these are folks that do get the benefit of participating in programs and weekly calls, and in training sessions, and a community that we run for them to help them with their job and helping us through the community.
Got it. Okay, last question. What social platform did you use in your implementation, and what's your experience been like so far?
We are using Jive software, and I might have mentioned earlier making that choice in 2009 at a point when IBM and Microsoft were the typical enterprise software vendors, was actually quite challenging, and I think maybe that will even illustrate for many of you why the process we went through in making our business case and really thinking about our evaluation and our recommendation was even more substantial, because we really were recommending to use a solution in the space at the time that wasn't a market leader and really hadn't been on anyone's enterprise software radar. We've been really pleased with the results. There are lots of solutions in this space, so I recognize that another company may have different business goals and come up with a different solution. But we've been happy with the way the system has scaled and performed for us, and it's been really easy for our staff to use. And I do feel that while the tool, it shouldn't be all about the tool. Sometimes if you don't select a good tool, it is all about the tool. And we've been really happy that it's helped us achieve the success that we have.
Well, Claire, thanks so much for sharing some great info today. It was quite a session, and when you get a chance to go back and look at the hashtag on Twitter, I think you'll be thrilled with the response. So we appreciate that.
Excellent.
And I want to let everyone know we'll be getting together again on Thursday for a discussion about social customer support with Frank Eliason from Citibank. It was quite a battle today for top tweeter, but future speaker, actually, Kitty Woolley, who's going to be speaking with you about building community and government, was the top tweeter today. Congratulations, Kitty. And we'll look forward to talking to everyone again on Thursday. Again, please get in the Facebook group. We'll share PDFs of the presentations and the video from the call today. So thanks, everybody, and thanks again, Claire. Have a great week.
Thank you.